who follows him, who has the same sort of interest and the same sort of skill set answers, and I get real-time information very quickly. Vice versa, if you're talking about social engineering, I get questions on that all the time. It allows you to connect to people that you couldn't connect to and get information that you couldn't get otherwise. This has created a really useful opportunity, both from a personal standpoint and from a business standpoint. Most people who I know who are on Twitter are actually getting business benefit from it. Ditto Facebook. Facebook originally started as this sort of kids site for college students to basically mess around online. It was sort of like the who's sitting at whose cafeteria table in high school, but it has become a business tool. I have now, at this point, more business connections on Facebook than I have just personal connections. Probably more than 70% of my Facebook network are people that I'm professionally connected to, and we use it for professional purposes. We set up meetings that way. We talk about business that way. I had somebody contact me the other day about setting up a phone call for like a client engagement on Facebook. This is becoming a business application, and there's benefit to it. And the reason I'm spending all this time talking about this up front is that if you don't realize what the benefits are, you kind of think your users are wasting time. You kind of think like, oh, dude, let's just get rid of it. Let's just say no, block all URLs that are star.facebook.com and be done with it. But realize there's going to be a business driver. And for now, it might be the younger people in your organizations that are driving the need. But I will tell you, when marketing figures it out, and most marketing departments have started to figure out Twitter, I mean, you start to see Twitter URLs on TV commercials now. Marketing departments are figuring it out, and soon enough, your executives are going to figure it out. And at some point, you're going to have some, CIO or CEO or, chief marketing officer come and say, we need access to Facebook so that we can do X, Y, and Z. At which point the whole idea of security being the Department of No and saying, hey, we're just not going to allow access, that goes out the window. So be ready, because it's going to happen. There's a huge business benefit to these sites that is going to, if it hasn't already, is going to be realized by your executive team, and they're going to force this stuff down our throats as security people. That's where this number comes in. And for those who are just on the call, on screen are a couple of graphs of Twitter growth and Facebook growth over the past few years. And the curves are exponential. We have reached, and probably in the last 6 to 9 months, we've reached the tipping point for both Facebook and Twitter. There is now a situation where both Facebook and Twitter are ubiquitous. It's obviously when Twitter URLs are starting to show up in TV commercials and stuff, that's about as ubiquitous as you get. But we're now at the point where there is enough mass on Facebook and Twitter and MySpace and LinkedIn. Actually, I heard an interesting stat the other day that there are over 500 million active users on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Now, even if you account for massive duplication across even if you assume that all the people that are on one network are on all three, so divide that 500 million by 3, you still get a number of about 167 million people. Think about that for a second. 167 million people is more than 50% of the population of the United States. And there's definitely lots of non-duplication there. I would bet that if you actually look at the whole number, there are more people on social networks than there are in the United States of America, which should give you a sort of mental model for how big the population is now, and it's growing exponentially. There could very well be, it could very well be that we're nearly at 1 billion people by the end of 2010 on these social networks across them all. That starts to make this a very fundamental problem. You can't escape it. And if there's a message that I'm trying to get through here at this beginning part is that there's value to these networks and you can't get away. You know, you're not going to be able to hide your head in the sand as a security professional and just say, okay, we're just going to turn it off, because there's so much population out there. There's so many people on there, and there are so many people using these things actively on a daily basis that we can't get away from it. So we've really hit that tipping point. And that puts us sort of in a bind, because it's actually time to deal with the threat. I mean, as the networks hit the tipping point, we have the same problem on the other side, because what was once an intellectual curiosity is now a fertile ground for bad people to do bad things and benefit from it. You know, criminals are opportunistic. If there's a billion people on Facebook, there's a billion targets for you know, for social engineering, for phishing, for any sort of violation of trust in order to make money. And criminals are nothing if not opportunistic about, what was it? I think it was John Dillinger. Yeah, it was John Dillinger, actually. They asked John Dillinger why he robbed banks. And Dillinger said, that's where the money is. Well, why are we seeing attackers move towards as a fertile ground? It's because that's where the users are, and more, increasingly, that's where the money's going to be. You know, I haven't heard my first story about someone using Facebook ads inappropriately. You know, there's certainly been lots of stories about using Google AdWords and using banner ads and things like that to spread malware, to point to malicious sites, all that kind of stuff. I haven't heard my first story about Facebook's ad network, but it can't be long. And I'm sure it's already happened. We just haven't heard about it. So there's no, you know, these threats are going to exist because fundamentally these sites are insecure. The social networking sites, the social media world, none of these sites were developed the way we see secure software developed. You know, if you look at Twitter or you look at Facebook, or even to the point of something like LinkedIn, which is much more on the professional realm, most of these sites are developed as sort of one-offs, rapid prototypes put together by developers whose goal fundamentally is to develop something quickly that has functionality. You know, often it's a Rails app or it's PHP. It's quick developing web code. And the goal is to develop web code that works effectively and that basically that gets the job done. I mean, anyone who's on Twitter has seen the stability issues with Twitter. This is not code that's developed by an organization like Microsoft that has a formal security design review up front, that has a formal design process, that has security testing, that has web app testing at the end, that undergoes web app testing regularly in production. No, this is code that's pushed out quickly, developed quickly, no security involved, no security thinking other than whatever the coder puts into it. And so you don't have a formal SDLC. You don't have a formal security lifecycle. I would bet, and I have no proof of this, although I should probably ask around, it would be an interesting question. I would bet that most of the developers at these sites have never even heard the idea of secure code training unless it was in a previous life. And this has led to huge issues on these sites. I mean, Facebook has just been beat up left, right, and center for its issues with, you know, with application developers and malicious applications. Twitter is a disaster. Fundamentally, Twitter has been a mess. I know those guys are working hard to clean it up. I know they're doing some good stuff over there. But over the past year, I mean, hardly a week goes by without Twitter crashing majorly, without some major security breach either in Twitter itself, and Twitter has had some serious internal breaches from users using bad passwords, from users giving up their passwords, on the internal stuff that has compromised their Google Apps implementation, that has compromised their corporate email. Also, all the way to you know, Twitter having security issues with the site itself. There was a Twitter worm in April that was